What are you doing? You live in Florida. It's like 70 degrees outside. I miss the winter weather. Whatever. What is up, everybody? So I've been living in Florida now for about a year and a half, where I used to live in Pennsylvania. After a while now, it's kind of the same down here all the time, and I know a lot of people like it and all, but I kind of miss the cold weather. So some days I bundle up a little bit more now, with it being in the winter months, to get the same feeling as Pennsylvania. But recently I did just travel home to Pennsylvania, and I was able to experience the cold with a homemade ice barrel bath, which was a pain in the ass to put together, where I tried to seal it up and it kept leaking. So then I just got a big plastic tarp thing and shoved that in there, which ended up working. So that was fun. But now the whole reason of this video is to talk about taking ice baths. In Pennsylvania, I used to go to college near the border of New York, to where there was a lake that would freeze over in the wintertime. So right around when I started getting into cold exposure, I decided to go out once a week and break through the ice. And the first time I did it, I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know how deep the ice would be, I just didn't know what to expect. But turns out the ice at the lake that I went to was probably about this thick. And all I had was a very dull wood axe that was a pain in the ass to cut through the ice. It probably took me about 15 minutes or so, to where it was actually beneficial because I had a coat on, and despite getting splashed in the face with every stroke and swing I had at the ice, it warmed my body up. So right after I made a little hole in the water, I took my jacket off and got my swimming trunks and got right in, to where it actually wasn't that bad. Now, many people probably think doing ice baths or cold showers are really crazy. And they have good reasons to believe that, because why would someone want to put themselves through extremely uncomfortable and cold situations? Makes sense. But turns out there's actually something to cold exposure, where in the recent years, the popular person named Wim Hof has made cold exposure very, very popular. And that is because there's actually a lot of science backed up now that cold exposure helps to boost immunity, reduce stress, it helps to increase discipline, it helps to increase your brown fat, which is more thermodynamic and burns more calories in a way. So it can help you burn a little extra calories, nothing too significant, but it increases your body heat, gets you better adapted for more colder situations. So say if you hunt, doing some ice baths here and there can very well help you be more prepared when you get in the woods and you're all bundled up, ready to hunt some deer. So that's why ice baths have been taking over. And another cool thing about them is, now you see a lot of people on social media that they really push themselves, they're in there forever, but all you need to do is about 2-3 and of a maximum of 5 minutes in the ice bath, to where anything past that, it's cool and all, but it's unnecessary and potentially can get dangerous after a certain point. Where I used to go in for 10 to 15 minutes and felt like I was pretty cool by doing that. But then on the drive home, the next 2 hours, my whole internal body was still cold. So I probably overdid it, to where now I'm only in there for about 2 to 5 minutes. My body gets warm then pretty quickly, to where I don't freeze for the next 2 hours. So pretty cool stuff. And another thing I forgot to mention is that it can also boost your recovery from workouts, where if you're a runner, doing ice baths after a run can be very beneficial for helping reduce the inflammation and stress from running. But if you are someone who's looking towards gaining muscle and resistance training, it's probably best to avoid doing any sort of cold exposure right after a workout, to where it could actually blunt some of the beneficial inflammation from working out. So If you want to still do ice baths and resistance train, the best thing to do is do the ice bath first thing in the morning rather than right after the workout. Or if you can only do it after a workout, try to extend it 2 to 4 to 6 hours after your workout, just to try to reduce any of the blunting of inflammation from the workout, because there is good inflammation from working out. Now living in Florida, like I said, I can't go out to a frozen lake or pond anymore. And when I first moved down here, I actually couldn't even get cold. I couldn't even get a cold shower. I lost my train of thoughts there. Because the freaking water in my apartment, it's lukewarm. It doesn't get cold. So I got a little bit weak after a couple months of being down here. But then I decided I needed to change that and went on Amazon, got myself a nice, very inexpensive ice bathtub. So got that thing, and now I fill it up with water and I let it sit out on my little balcony in my tiny apartment here and sit in it every single morning. And now in Florida, it's actually getting down in the 40s, 50s in the winter months. So it's actually kind of pretty chilly in the morning, to where it's a nice, good wake me up in the morning, push myself to do something that I don't necessarily want to do, where then once or twice a week, I will store up on ice throughout the week, where I have 2 freezers, and I store up the ice in the tiny one and then put it all in my big one. Then when it's time to get an ice bath, I get it all out. So here is a video of me doing my typical, this was a little bit later in the afternoon rather than in the morning, of doing an ice bath in my tub outside. But basically just take my ice and from my chest freezer and load it up and start dumping it into my ice bath outside. And then after it's all filled up, it typically gets down to around, I've gotten it down to about 30, 40 degrees, I think, to where I forget what I got this one down to. But either or, I get it sub 40 degrees to where it's nice and cold. And then I always mix up the ice and let it sit in there for probably a good 10 minutes. So then the ice actually melts a little bit and gets the rest of the water that was already in there cold. So I've experienced where I've actually put all the ice in and then got in right away. And I'm like, oh, this is super easy. Well, guess what? The rest of the water wasn't cold yet. So that's another thing to make sure you do, is let the ice sit in there, the water, for 5, 10, 15 minutes. Mix it around so the rest of the water circulates and gets cold. But yeah, this one was actually pretty tough because it was later in the afternoon. I didn't want to do it anymore, but after I got in, I wanted to get out right away, but I stayed there. I kept breathing, and eventually I just got into a state of being fully present in the moment. And this is another thing with cold plunging. After a while, you really start to get honest with yourself on who you are, realize what you have control over, and then you can really find actually that you can do anything that you put your mind towards, as long as you're willing to put in the work. Now, getting to the most beneficial part of ice bathing, and that is the mental aspects of it. Because no one that gets an ice bath truly wants to get in because they're like, oh yeah, this is fun. Now, there are a couple people that are like that, and they're of a different breed. But most people, they dread getting into it. But the thing is, the stuff that you do that it tends to be harder and difficult, and when you push yourself to do it, the easier it gets and the more improvement of your mind and self-determination and thoughts get. So it gets very beneficial. Your mind starts to get super clear, and you stop worrying about any sort of fears or thoughts that have been on your mind, and you just start to breathe. And that's all you focus on when you're in the cold water. It's just your breath. And you want to get out so badly. Your mind is telling you to get out, that this is too cold, and that shouldn't be in here, but then you give it another 10 seconds, 20, 30, then you're in a minute, then you're in 2 minutes, and you're just still. It's peaceful. You're calm, and you feel like you can do anything then. And it's a really good boost of self-esteem if you're low, being a little depressed, to where you feel very, very good after you get out because you just achieved something that was super, super hard. And you can give yourself a pat on the back because most people, like I said, they think this is crazy and don't do this. But for the select few that do ice plunges, ice baths, they know what this sense of feeling they get from ice gives them. And it's a really good feeling. And so that's why I do it every single day where it's cold on most days. And then I get it really, really cold on 1 to 2 days a week, depending on how much ice I can store up. And so the days that I have ice in it, it's definitely a lot harder, but you feel great. I feel super good when I get out and just have a really clear mind and vision for the rest of the day.
Let's go.
Now, despite ice baths being very beneficial, there can be some dangers to them, to where, like I mentioned, you don't want to stay in them for too long, to where you can risk getting hypothermia. If you stay in there really, really long. But anything past 10, 15 minutes, you're pushing the boundaries. And also, if you're going out to a lake or a frozen pond, you always want to make sure you're with somebody, just in case something bad would happen. To where when I was going out into the frozen pond up in Pennsylvania, over time, the ice was starting to melt after like 2 months as I was doing it. To where, like I said, it was this thick to where it was getting a lot thinner. As I was leaving the one day, I knew the ice was getting thin, to where eventually I started walking and then I fell in. Thankfully, where I had my hole, it was only about waist to chest high, to where I was walking out. It was only about waist deep then, but it did cause some scratching and bruises on my legs. So just another thing to be cautious about when you are ice plunging, doing a polar plunge, is to just be safe and make sure someone's with you just in case something bad would happen. So other than that, ice plunging, ice baths, cold exposure, it's very, very safe. And there's really nothing to worry about when you're doing it, unless you have some sort of medical condition or you're just staying too long. And so ice plunging, ice baths, good stuff, where I mentioned before, all you need is 2 minutes. And to start out, you don't need to get to 2 minutes either. The best thing that you can do is literally just after your regular warm showers, turn the faucet to cold. Stay in there 5 seconds, first day. Perfect. Great. Task complete. You got 5 seconds of cold. Next day. Do it again. Do it. Keep doing it. Keep doing it. And then you get up to 10 seconds, 20 seconds, 30 seconds, a minute, 2 minutes of cold in a matter of 2 to 3 weeks, depending on how much you want to increase as days and weeks goes by. But eventually then, getting a cold shower will get easy, to where then you can step it up a notch and work on ice baths. And you can, if you live in the northern hemisphere, you can go to lakes, ponds, frozen areas, whatever, that's free, and jump in for 30 seconds. Test it out. Where another cool thing is that actually when you're in flowing water, like not ponds, and lakes and streams, it's a lot harder than, say, getting an ice bath like the one I have in my apartment. Because when you sit in still water, your body then will start to produce heat, and you can actually see then you create a barrier around the ice. It starts to melt a little bit because your body's producing so much heat now, to where it gets easy when you don't move. So that's another thing. I like to actually move around when I'm in the water every little bit, when I'm doing my ice baths in my little tub, compared to if I do it in a lake, or not a lake, in a stream, or in a pond, no, not a pond, in a stream, or whatever they're called. But the water's flowing on your skin, so your body has no time to regain warmth, and so it actually makes it pretty hard. So try it out, 30 seconds, a minute, and then 2 minutes, and then like I said, that's all you need to max it out at. Unless you have people with you and know what they're doing, then you can push it up to 3, 4, 5 minutes. And then say you don't have access to freezing ponds, lakes, rivers, or whatever, then you can work on in your shower tub and go buy ice and do it once or twice a week, because ice does get pretty expensive then, to where you probably need around 80 pounds of ice, I'm assuming, because that's what I was doing before I started filling up my freezer with ice from my man-made Greek yogurt and protein containers, filling up my water and then making giant ice cubes out of them. So instead of me going to the gas station and spending $20 to $40 on ice every week, I just get free ice now from my freezer. So you can purchase ice once or twice a week and do ice baths, or then you can get the more expensive options that like the ice barrel, which is you still have to fill up with ice, the cold plunge, the Morzok Forge, which are ice baths that basically filter cold water and ozone stuff to where you don't even need to clean them then. So that's another option. They're $5,000 to $20,000. It's not cheap, but if you have the expenses and are someone who really is into ice baths and cold exposure, that is an investment to look into. To where for my little tub, it's nice, but I do have to drain the water every 1 to 2 weeks to clean it, because it has no filter in it. So that's a little downside, but in the end of the day, it's worth it to me, and it's worth it to a lot of people, to where if you take any search on TikTok, YouTube, or Instagram, a lot of people do this nowadays. It's cool stuff. I enjoy it, and I didn't used to dread it. I thought it was always cool when I first saw people doing it. So yeah, living down in Florida, that's the only thing that I don't like living down here, is every single day it's very similar. There's no snow, there's no really cold weather that in the wintertime, the seasonal changes that I used to experience all the time. So I don't get that anymore. But I am able to still adapt to the cold a little bit, where I got my tub outside, which is nice to sit in every morning and expand my mind and wake me up. And that, my friends, is why I take the cold plunge, and why you should consider taking it too. Until next time, see y'all. Peace.
Let's go.
It's just the wind. Going out -12. What are you doing?
Getting the dogs in there.
Don't do that. All right. And then Christian, you'll hold the towel for me then out there. You give it to me. Here we go. Warm shower here. Okay.
Okay.
Swim shorts.
What?
No swim shorts.
I'm using these.
Okay.
Hold these. Oh, this is gonna be cold. Oh, it's so cool. Oh my. Oh! See, this water's warmer than the actual outside. Okay, I'm good now.
Got anything to say?
Just chilling. Killing.
Lighting's better over here.
It's not that bad. Just being a little bitch earlier. It would suck if I would get like jammed in here and stuck. You can't get me out. That wind is cold. I am the cold. Try to get Duke out.
Come on. Come on, go. Go. It's cold.
Duke! 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 Duke, look. Duke.
Good boy.
How many minutes is he staying in?
I definitely hit 2 minutes. You know you're not telling
it's
me.
2.
What?
It's 2.
Okay.
Was I supposed to keep a timer?
No.
I was, well,
Just when you started.
Yeah, I saw the time when you got in.
Whoa!
I was like,
I see the steam rolling off me too.
It wasn't that bad. It's just the wind.
don't forget to salt that lot, doggy salt.
Yeah.
Doggy salt.
When do you want me to stop?
You stop now. Here. Dukes, keep an eye on him. Am I red?